And we're back and we're moving into our first conversation for this morning. It's going to be an extended one. We're joined by Richard Dickie Bradley, attorney at law and activist as well. Good morning.
Morning, Marlene, and attorney at law and activist Kevin Authors.
Wait.
How about you, Thai, Kevin?
Wait. Yeah.
So how are you?
Well, I passed the sea on my way here. There was not a wave to be seen on this side of the two islands. You know, Belize City is two islands. The river divides us, and then there's another. But when you look on this portion where the Honorable Prime Minister lives, it can be calm, and then when you come out of the river mouth, senior rough we go through. And I did a little bit of exercise. That's why I'm 3.5 minutes late this morning.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that you made it. And of course, you know what happens with exercise. It'll help to wake up the brain adequately. So, Dickie, let's get into some of the issues to discuss this morning. And I want to start off by talking about the legal opinion that you assisted to prepare along with Anthony Sylvester and Karim Musa, which is essentially the basis of the current legal challenge in the court.
I'm glad you're reminding me of that. I need to look to see where the invoice and the provocation. Marlene, that matter, actually Anthony and myself and Kevin from time to time as attorneys, we would talk, serious legal talk and so on. A lot of discussions were taking place in terms of, well, this thing that is happening. I remember we were at a little restaurant by the hospital, and we met Dr. Zuniga. I don't know, they say somebody had said no, call no name. And he was of the view that, listen, why aren't the liars, you know the liars are always being blamed. In Shakespeare, he says that first we have to kill all the liars and then move on from there. So that discussion was with Dr. Zuniga. A little later, the members of the Belize Peace Movement, a loose organization of activists and politicians and ex-politicians, they firmly believe that there has to be something kind of wrong with how we're doing all these major things, and then where are the liars? In fact, Bobby Lopez actually wrote the Bar Association calling on them to please circulate my letter and see if a liar would come forward and give them legal advice on the matter. So that is kind of like the background.
Yeah.
I
think it's interesting that you brought up that point, because in fact you'd spoken about a potential constitutional challenge a long time before this legal opinion was put forward. And you're right, Bobby Lopez had actually, and I think other members of the BPP perhaps had mentioned before that they wanted to look into the constitutionality of it.
Right.
Why the delay?
It's not a delay, and in fact, that is one of the government arguments that, man, don't come at the 11th hour if you can bring up this business, when, you know, this thing they're wrong so long. But truth of the matter is that the compromise was signed at the end December 2008. The government actually had informed the Organization of American States in May of 2008 that they would in fact be going ahead to the ICJ. Guatemala had just done so a few months before. Now, May, you would recall, in 2008 there had just been a change of government around February, March, April, May. So the government signaled, they went ahead, they signed. There was even a date for both countries to hold a simultaneous referendum. Guatemala changed, which is important for our discussion because we are going on, like, apart from the 10 Commandments, Moses brought down the 10th of April 2019 as a firm, can't change date, and the world will fall off its axis if we change it and so on. But Guatemala has made changes to
multiple times.
Yes. So in terms of background, the peace movement deserves every commendation in terms of having been the consistent ones to do that.
Yeah.
In any event,
curiosity, how come they're not involved in the case? You were working first with them,
yes,
and then you were teamed along with Anthony Sylvester and Karim Musa from the People's United Party in the actual legal opinion.
Yes, except for that last part, we weren't teaming for the PUP. what had happened is that the peace movement was a bit concerned that in terms of legal applications to the court, that there would be a delay of holding the referendum, and they want to try to kill the beast, you know, in the Eagles, in that song about Welcome to the Hotel California. You can stab it with your steel knife, but you just can't kill the beast. They want to make sure it doesn't wheel and come back at them again. So they are promoting a matter in which the people of Belize would not be jeopardized by going to a foreign court. But in terms of a legal situation, the government has a duty, a responsibility to search for a solution to this problem that has befallen us.
So what I understand from you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the BPP did not move forward with the legal case because they did not want a referendum. They did not want an injunction on the referendum. They wanted to proceed
to a more.
no vote.
Yes, they wanted more. And also at the 11th hour, probably the 12th hour, they had signaled to us, well, so long as the matter would be taken up by some other applicant, it would be fine with them. Because we had come that far where we had a legal opinion. And what is interesting is that the deputy leader of the People's United Party had in fact started to show interest in the legal side of this situation. And then, to my surprise, the leader of the opposition in fact called and asked if we would be kind enough to meet with him. So my son Richard Bradley and myself and Anthony met the leader of the opposition, who interestingly enough, although we were talking purely legal matters, picked up right away that, you know what, if this whole matter is illegal, if it's unlawful, if it is unconstitutional, as it appeared to him at that time, he asked if we would be prepared to turn over the legal brief so that he could then call in the PUP lawyers. I've never been a PUP lawyer. At this stage, I don't think either, either from Wagner Lane. So we were pleasantly surprised. He indicated that he would get his legal people to look at it, and in fact, if there was merits to what we were saying, he thought that the constitutional opposition of the country had a duty to proceed with that matter. So that is how it come about. In terms of the so-called 11th hour, which is a weak argument which I hope Kevin could put to rest in terms of, if you raise a constitutional issue, the practice in other countries, in other democracies, in other jurisdictions, is the judge clears his calendar and deal with that matter. That is a very serious matter. As Kevin can bear me out, for example, liberty as a subject, habeas corpus, extradition, things, and so. I remember when I was at Kevin's age, Channel 5 had been behind me. We actually got an order while the person was on the plane. And driving like crazy to reach the airport because we don't want them to deport this man unlawfully. And so when you reach the airport, they say, we're sorry, the plane, basically they look for you and say, no, you can't, they'll get in trouble. A judge has ordered that that person is not to be deported out of this country. Actually, those days I thought you could change the world. I was running with the official up the steps and we got into the plane and I didn't know who the person was. Call out the name, where then I said, hurricane.
So
I'm just saying
the timing
there is no 11th hour when there is a very, very serious matter.
The day before a major issue, a major
Marlene and Kevin, so that I do not jump back and forward, let me, since you've asked that question, let me just say this. It emerged to us who were looking at the law that there was a case in the United Kingdom, comes out of there, Britain is exiting the European Union, Brexit, for which the Prime Minister of the UK is going to be kicked out of her job shortly, or she will call elections because of the same matter. There was a referendum in 2016, and but a lady from Guyana, I probably said this to Isani, a lady from Guyana who lives in the United Kingdom, Miss Gina Miller, She is one of the persons who said, no, Miss May, the Prime Minister, she and her cabinet and her government can't just turn around and decide to pull out of the European Union. That is a matter for the elected representatives of the people. That is a matter for the British Parliament. And she legally challenged it and won. And the government, in fact, appealed her challenge and went to what had become their highest court, the Supreme Court of that country, and she won.
Yeah.
And
but it was after the referendum.
Yes, yes, but the referendum is merely the will of the people that they want to come out of the European Union. How you come out, by what mechanism, under what terms and conditions is an entirely different
Now,
matter.
I think that's an interesting case, and we did bring it up with Lisa Shulman, who's arguing for the government case before the case started. And one of the things I think that is clear or that needs to be mentioned is that you're right. The ruling did come out in saying that essentially it should have gone to Parliament before in the Brexit case. It happened after the referendum, but there was nothing that could be done with the ruling. It wasn't executed that the referendum was invalid.
No, thanks for that view, because what we're dealing with in their case, and even more so in our case, because we have a written constitution, the British have a situation built on years and years of decisions by courts and their own peculiar situation in that country. What we are dealing with in this struggle that has taken place, in which the opposition has joined forces with the people who are saying no, is that this is a fundamental matter of our governance. This is a huge issue of the rule of law. This is that our politicians cannot go about running the country how they want, paying no attention to the requirements of the law, or that the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, is in fact their bosses and they must follow the law in the land. So to come back to that issue, the situation is, even though the British people had voted in a referendum that they want to come out of this union of 27, 28 European nations, a huge market, this is their future in terms of trade and their economy and so on. Even though the people had said that, how do you come out, under what terms, and can you just not come out? So what is happening in Belize now is a little bit more complicated, because one, we have a law, which is the referendum law, that says that any final solution or proposed final solution to the Guatemalan claim must be taken to a referendum. Yes. Guess what? The cabinet and the minister and the foreign minister, on behalf of his colleagues in cabinet, throw that in the dirt basket, and they come up with one thing. The only referendum you want to have is that whether or not you want us to proceed to the court. We don't know what are the solution. We don't know what are the terms and conditions.
What you're saying is that there should have been a referendum before the signing of the compromise? Is that what I hear you saying?
No. What we're saying is that Belize has a law. It is a referendum law.
Yes.
That law also, in addition to saying what can go to a referendum and so on, it says specifically, when we're dealing with the Guatemala matter, in terms of any proposed settlement, we have a say.
We have to go to a referendum.
It must come to us. Whether it's binding or not binding, the people have some kind of right under the law to say how they accept or don't accept the proposed settlement. Yeah. Well, going to the court is not the proposed settlement. That is only a means, one means. Instead of negotiation, instead of having arbitration, you're going to court. But we don't know what will be the final decision, and we will have no say in that matter. You can't, because in fact the minister has signed a treaty saying that the decision of the court is final and binding. We can't turn that over.
Is that the basis?
And that is only one of several issues.
And that's what I wanted to because I wanted to get into the content of the legal opinion itself, because what we have been told in the media through Karim Musa and Anthony Sylvester, and even here on the show, is essentially because the ICJ can potentially rule in a manner that may change our constitution. That is perhaps the most important point in why it had to go to the House of Representatives before it was signed.
Okay, that is That is in essence one of the other arguments. That argument is this, that the government, the executive, has signed a treaty, which is a binding treaty between Belize and Guatemala. Like we're not in enough trouble with a previous treaty of 1859. They have signed a binding treaty in which a court, a foreign court, is being given the authority to decide, determine the boundaries, the size of our nation. However, in the Constitution of Belize, which is the supreme law of this land, it says in Section 1 and Schedule 1, the nation state of Belize shall be, and it says what is our nation. It lists down all the latter keys, and it says how it follows the 1859 treaty, and so on and so. That is in the Constitution. Who can change the Constitution? Not the executive branch of government. Not the minister has no authority whatsoever to sign anything saying that he is going to pole vault over the requirements of our Constitution and tell a court, go ahead and decide whether for we boundaries. He does not have that authority. No member of the executive has that authority. To change the boundaries of Belize, only the House of Representatives, the Senate, can do that.
How do you respond to the counter argument on that, though, which is no person knows exactly what the ruling will be out of the ICJ?
That is even worse. We have a right under the referendum act to say if we accept what is the final solution to the problem. We don't know where happen anything. We absolutely do not know.
No. But when you
we're not a part of that at all.
But when you paint the worst case scenario, which is the potential change to the Constitution in the definition of the boundaries,
yes.
You can also look at the opposite end of the spectrum where it's validated, and it means that this particular case talking about a change in what the Constitution says in our boundaries is no longer valid.
Yes, but in the rule of law, if we're to be a nation in which politicians can come and do things and wreck we up the way they are, we have to go by what is our law. We have to go by what is our Constitution. The people who can change Section 1 of the Constitution, and I will throw in another matter shortly, are the elected representatives of this nation sitting in the House of Representatives who has the authority under Section 6069 that they can make a change to the Constitution. Only they could do that. No minister can do that. No minister can sign something tying their hands, binding them. Suppose they don't agree. We can't say, well, you know, it's more than likely that the International Court will say that what we know as Belize will remain as Belize. Because, as Section, I think, 20, Kevin, of the Constitution of Belize, you can go to the court on constitutional matters where it's affecting all that long list of our rights. If there has been, if there is, or if there is likely to be any kind of violation of our rights. So who are they to just go ahead and sign one piece of paper in Guatemala?
Yeah.
You know?
Would this case, and obviously as a non-legal person, as the majority of Belizeans are there many questions about having this case on whether or not we'll go to the referendum, looking at what's been spent and for many different reasons. Could the challenge proceed after a referendum vote? In other words, can you wait and see if the people say no, matters dead, and if they say yes, you proceed with the case?
Yes, I would think that you could still say there has been an illegality. There'd be some argument that it's a moot issue because the people have spoken. La vox populi, the Latin is that the voice of the people is the voice of God. But then it means if a court should make a decision, as there's a possibility, tomorrow the Chief Justice will say whether or not the application for the urgent injunction to put a hold until the substantive arguments can come to the court. If the CJ says, I'm not going to stop it, the lawyers will be rushing over to the Court of Appeal to try and say the Chief Justice has not made the correct decision in law. And they would be hoping that if it's turned down at our Court of Appeal, they would reach the Caribbean Court of Justice, which, by the way, held a meeting on a Sunday to stop the government, I think, of Barbados or one of those islands from disenfranchising.
The day before.
Yes.
From having someone run in the
That
election.
is fantastic.
The ruling is made
yeah,
the day
we
before.
live in a modern age. You can be in court sitting right here in Belize because of the whole technology that we can talk to the court, no? And let me make this point, no? As I was reading the multitude of law on this matter that comes from what we call various and different jurisdictions, it was a little heartwarming for me to read that our court, the Caribbean Court of Justice, looking at other cases in which another important issue that Amon and Magali Young are arguing, and the other lawyers, is that in terms of the separation of powers, which is an important legal bedrock and principle, Caribbean Court of Justice has said it is incumbent, it is an obligation on the Supreme Courts and the courts in the region to put a stop to break this business that you are in one branch of government and you are trespassing, going into another branch of government, and in fact kind of like take over their functions, which is a no-no in terms of what is the law of the land, not only in Belize, but everywhere where there's a democratic situation. Meaning this then, cow no business in a horse gallop.
In this case, though, Dickie, isn't it the reverse argument the same, though? Because parliamentary matters and parliamentary procedure is something that the courts ought not to get into.
In telling the parliament what to
do. So in this case, what the court case in essence is saying is that parliament, you really haven't done something you ought to have done.
No. Now reach there yet. What the court is going to say is that the executive has no right to be doing something that only the parliament is entitled, authorized, and has the power to do. Can I clear up one matter? I'm glad you said that too also, Marlene. This is important for persons, and I'm really sorry that it's tied up in the whole ICJ matter, because the bigger issue is that if we want a better country, and we all do that, we have to hold politicians, government, public officers in their various positions, the police department, the landspeople who got our nation wrecked up, the passport, the birth certificate, all these things, you know what it is? We have to run our country like it is based on law, not whims and fancies. You know, like me, so I can't get my voter's ID. You the red, so the blue when they put in the application, that push one, all that kind of thing. Listen, man, what is right, and what is the law is the law. If we're not happy with the law, we change the law. But we can't get people to do what they want. So that is a good point, Kevin. Thanks for it. Because what it is saying is that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, on behalf, do it by himself, people, said it, this, said it, that, said it, they do anything like no rogue minister, said he's following government policy. Yeah. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, his cabinet colleagues, the executive branch of government cannot do what they did. That is what all the law says. You can't make a treaty with Guatemala overriding our law, our constitution, and the functions of the parliament. You cannot, because the constitution says, if you the cow, you keep out of the horse gallop. You do it the cow, then if you do. Then if you move and eat the grass and produce milk. Horses, they will ride and take whatever it is that they do, passengers and goods and so. We can't, otherwise you will have chaos. How can you run a government like that? How? Now the other point is this. If you are making these major errors in such an elementary matter, because surely you must know that a minister can sign a treaty taking away our rights, overriding the constitution, doing things that only the elected parliamentarians can do in their official position as parliament. If you are making these mistakes, what other mistakes are you making in terms of the actual legal matters which are going on? The professor, I heard you on a repeat of the show not very long ago saying that the professor from UW, I don't want to mispronounce his name, I can't pronounce it, but Professor V was saying that, listen, there is an apparent problem with Article 7 of the 1859 treaty, Belize is hinging its arguments on historical matters which stretch back hundreds of years between two imperialist nations, Spain and Britain, and later 1821 or so Guatemala officially comes into being. And that in fact that there is as the Guatemalans say, there is copious correspondence between Britain and Guatemala. And that you look at 300 and odd years of documentation, historical things taking place. He once believes you go and dig up into those archives so that when you got a court, get a surprise.
It was actually the close of the opinion
His
itself,
opinion,
ensuring
yes.
that there is sufficient, I don't have the specific words, but essentially that you've looked enough in the archives to ensure that you have found all agreements. I don't want to shift too much from what we were talking about before at this time. We'll cover some more things later. But looking at the constitutionality of the case and the points that are being brought forward, is there still time for the government to correct what this case is saying is an error? Is it too late for them to go before the House of Representatives?
Well, the Chief Justice's ruling, which we eagerly await tomorrow, which is perhaps going to be his biggest ruling as Chief Justice of our country. It's a major. I don't buy the argument. I'm trying to tease out Kevin. He's a lawyer, He's a practicing attorney, not those lawyers who go on degree and have no experience. He has fought many battles. The Chief Justice is being asked to make a major decision. There are people in the country who feel like, because the Prime Minister has to do the appointment of judges and justices, and recently cussed up on judge, that somehow or other the decision is foregone, and so on. The Chief Justice is being called upon in this country to say that the government not having followed the law, that the government having breached the Constitution, that the government having taken upon itself to do things which it's not authorized to do, that there is no harm in postponing the referendum. What is the harm? None of the money spent on the so-called public education is wasted money. No, there's been no, what is the harm?
No, that wasn't my question.
I know, but I just wanted to clear that up. Is it too late for it to be repaired?
Injunction. So let's say there is no injunction and April 10th is the date. Is there still time between between the 1 week period for it to be corrected?
Well, let's say what
based on the argument that you're putting forward. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Let's say what is to be corrected. Let's say what is to be corrected. That they have entered into a treaty unlawfully, illegally. The treaty between Belize, the so-called special agreement, is a document which is illegal. If that is illegal, anything that flows out of that is also illegal. It is in violation of the Constitution of the country, because while the executive does have the authority, or does have, what is the correct English here? Kevin, I'll try to get to you. While the executive has the authority to enter into treaties, the law as we understand it, based on case law and decision of judges, when the executive is entering into a treaty that ends up having two impacts, that treaty is now going to interfere with domestic law. I have a law on certain matters, you go change the law and not go through the procedure. That is a no-no. The other thing is when the executive enters into a treaty that infringes the rights of the citizens of the country, that is a no-no. The only way you change the laws of Belize, the only way you interfere with the rights of the citizens of Belize, is you go through the parliament. Only they can say that. Where you get this authority from? There's no, as Kevin would know, there's no parent law that in one section says what the Minister of Foreign Affairs can make rules and regulations or statutory instruments and so on affecting AB. That there's none of that at all in this situation. So can they repair the damage that has been done in terms of tearing the Constitution, in terms of throwing away the Referendum Act, in terms of depriving the nation of having the Parliament say, we endorse this treaty, we could even pass a law with the conditions of the treaty. Belize signed treaty with the United States of America. Belizeans know about extradition treaties. Extradition treaty is a serious matter that you could take one of your own citizens and hand him over to a foreign nation where he may or may not be treated the way you would treat him under the violation for the law. That had to be made a law in this land for it to happen.
Can I ask this though? Because I've heard this analogy being made as a counter argument to your position, which is that it's not that the government does not have the authority to have entered into the compromise, but it is similar to a situation, and the example I was given by another gentleman was, it is like you have a car, and bear with me with this example, and your car there's a bill of sale. That's the document that the bank holds to say that we have some right over your car, like a mortgage. And you go to somebody and say, I want to sell my car. I will sell my car to you. And you agree on a price for the car with that person, knowing that you have an encumbrance with it on the bank. In that scenario, it's not that you cannot sell your car, it's just that you have to do certain things procedurally before you can give them free and clear title. I don't want to get into much legalities, but the simple point is, the argument on the other side is, listen, it's not that we don't have the authority. Yes, we have the authority to get into the agreement, but how it is that the government is able to then keep their obligations under that treaty is what follows from what should be done in terms of taking to Parliament, etc., etc. How do you respond to that analogy and that position?
In my mischievous mind, my first reaction is to say like, one car all over the country. Well, it starts with the executive signing the treaty, which they can do, but a treaty of that nature would have to have parliamentary approval. So I thought when the Prime Minister announced his press conference, cynical as I am over the behavior of politicians, and I wasn't surprised in my cynicism, I was fortified that the Prime Minister would say that rather than putting the country through now a legal battle over a matter, he would then seek to rectify or to repair whatever is seen to be. He doesn't agree with the position that we have said in the legal opinion, but out of an abundance of caution in order not to have a divided nation, more divided now, or getting more ammunition to be divided, he would have repaired it by calling a meeting at the House of Representatives and calling on the opposition and the opposition members to, in fact, join forces with him. Listen, he pulled off a masterpiece. And I don't want to give him the credit for it, but if it is his, it is his. That was a masterpiece to get former foreign ministers to go on a stage.
To sign the declaration?
The declaration meant nothing out here in the streets of Belize, but in terms of what he had, I credited it the British. In fact, when, like a day or two afterwards, the British put out a release, the British put out a press release, and was worded, you really need to revisit that matter there, which was worded to basically sound like, well, we were there and we also signed the thing afterwards. What they were saying, they were present at the signing.
But even more so, in addition to getting them to the ceremonialities of showing public support for the move towards the ICJ.
The declaration, yeah.
The declaration, there's also a manifestation of one of the ministers as actually lead counsel in the case for the government, which is also a significant feat. I don't know if it's an indication of this not being a partisan issue or it is something different.
This is highly partisan from almost the get-go, because the Prime Minister had started off by saying that this would be a conscience vote, this would be a matter, however the ministers and area representatives feel it's a matter for them and so on. Then afterwards he do one of his many flips there and say like, the government, the cabinet endorses this matter. But he went to a Corozal convention and called upon the People's United Party, the United Democratic Party, to endorse, which they did, a resolution that yes, the UDP did with this. You can't do that for a nationalist, man, come on.
Well, both parties have put forward their position, but going back to the issue at hand, and I appreciate that you were in the courtroom yesterday. You said you heard some of the arguments that were being put forward, and I'd just like to hear from your perspective what your thoughts are on the arguments against the case. So there was the presentation
Well, I've
by
seen
the
the
lead
written,
attorney,
yeah, the written
Lisa
sub-
Shulman, and also the Westman James.
Well, you know that Eamon Courtney and Anthony Sylvester are a formidable, and Magali, Marin Young, and the younger attorneys. I don't know if they want their names to be called, but they deserve massive credit for the kind of work. Everybody's working under pressure in this matter. The government, they have dozens of liars, and then could pick up the phone and call Professor V and C and X and Y and Z.
Sorry, Mr. Bradley,
But let me just quickly say
is the Solicitor
the
General,
argument is
is the Solicitor General a part of the party for
well, one of the notations then was
actively?
that was well, she is the Solicitor General. This is a government matter. Why they need to pass it out to private attorneys is an entirely different matter. But the Solicitor General was in court, didn't actually make a presentation, but in the profession, that presentation is basically a part of her presentation. Their arguments is the 11th hour arguments that, Chicken Little, the heavens is going to fall if the Chief Justice should ever do a thing like stop this referendum.
Because of resources spent and what other reasons?
The
Primarily
amount of
resources
work
spent.
that has been put in, the importance of this matter, and the usual thing that somebody who is trying to stop them. It's a strange thing, Marlene and Kevin, that, let me just give a quick, I don't know if it's an analogy, but let me just quickly say this. A young lady was raped in the San Ignacio police station like maybe 2 Christmas ago. Some months ago, your television station broke the news that a young man was raped in our prisons, I think like last year or so. The government is in court fighting, don't want to pay a little compensation to those people, not have the basic human decency to say that we're sorry that something like that happened to you. You think a young boy that the hotel they have, but man grab me and rape me, choke me, and then do it to me again a second time, and a doctor certified that yes, the type of injuries and bruises are consistent with that, and man, there is, I don't know, this is our young nation, but man, don't we have a sense of human decency to people when wrong is done to them, man? It happens, they rape people in American prisons and British prisons, and so it happens. That is almost like the nature of prisons. You have to be protecting vulnerable prisoners from predatory prisoners. Have a decency. So I say that as a background to say to you that, I don't know, man. When an issue come up, can I say this? Let me get ahead of myself and just say this.
I just want to get the arguments that you heard from. So the primary one is the 11th hour.
Yes, the arguments from the government is that the Chief Justice should not do this, that they have not to come now to ask for this, that in fact the whole nation is at the stage now. We done that referendum. Where all the government had to go through to reach a stage. That is very weak argument in terms of the magnitude, the huge nature of what is happening. We need our Supreme Court to stand up for the rights of our citizens. We need our Supreme Court to say to the cows, stay in your part of the pasture and don't get in among the horses, because you got harm.
Hold the question right there on your tongue. You'll have it as soon as we come back from this break. Just taking a quick pause here, and the second part of our show will also be a continued conversation with attorney Dickie Bradley. Please stay tuned.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
And we're back and continuing our conversation.
Yes.
With attorney Dickie Bradley.
Well, before Kevin starts to analogy me to death, I want to say something, because you all had me up till late last night. Gustavo Oriano, who is a
Former.
highly respected legal man in Guatemala, and in fact he works with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, had written a review of the special agreement, and he was kind enough to publish it. It's right on the internet, like the Guatemala, what they call the White Book that they published in 1931, with all the documentation between Guatemala and Britain, and they update it as they go along. It is on the internet. Because we're always pressed for time in the modern medium, I just wanted to make this point, that towards the end of Oriano's review of the special agreement at page 105, he says, the fact that Belize agreed to settle the dispute through the ICJ is an important diplomatic achievement for Guatemala. Because we are trying to, no, we are not trying, we, the yes people, have been telling Belizeans that all this long while Britain and Guatemala wrangle over this matter, the British have never been able to get Guatemala to go to court. But look what we semi-gods have done. We have been able to get, then they said, no, my boy, all the while. In 1997, they called on Belize, so let's go to the ICJ. 97, we're an independent nation. 1999, the Guatemala again called our bluff, let us go to the ICJ. We had to want it back down. There is another argument.
But the terms were different this time around.
Well, that's what I'm coming to.
Yes.
Yes, thank you,
We
Marlene.
can't
That is
miss
the real
the
issue.
important point.
That is the issue.
Okay.
That's why I'm coming to that. The Guatemalans in 1947, the British in 1946 said, let us take this matter to what was renamed the ICJ. It used to be the World Court at The Hague. They renamed it the ICJ. The British said, no man, let's go to court then. We can't find no.
And
Let's go to
Guatemala
court.
said no.
No, not so easy. They say they will only go to the ICJ on the legal interpretation of the treaties that were signed. On the legal interpretation of the treaties. Guatemala said, no, my boy, that don't know what we wrangle over. I'd go to court too, but we want to go with all the documents, we want to go with all the facts of the matter. How you, not going to tell me the treaty says that this is a boundary treaty between Belize and Guatemala, and that the boundary starts in the mid-channel of Sarstoon and then it continues to Grasshoppers. That's not just for me and you to go through, because you to pretend like Article 7 is not there. Professor V recently said that, man, Article 7 is a major issue.
Yeah. But can I ask a question?
But can I throw this in one and answer your question, which is what I was trying to get at? The rules of the International Court of Justice list down at Article 38.1 and Article 38.2. Article 38.2 is this Latin phrase ex acqueo et bono, which means we are going to go on matters which are not strictly,
Go ahead.
not strictly, if I say for no, we're going to court on matters which has to do with primarily the equitable nature of the argument. The British were saying we're going on the legal argument of the thing. So I'm just saying that one, the British had said, make we carry the matter to court, but only in this restricted area, which is part of the rules of the court. And Guatemala said, no, my boy. Make we go
They
on
want
this.
fair and equitable in addition to legal.
Yes, because...
but doesn't that deem us success for what we've negotiated so
No,
far? And being
because
able to
if
only
we-
get it on the legal basis?
If we had it done, as I said, I was up late last night. I'll send your boss, the chief executive officer, what they call taking instructions, preparation for most vetting documents, and so. The rules of the code 38, whatever it is, that deal with the legal aspect of it, says that you take into account these things. And
Yes.
they say you take into account what is
First, the treaties.
considered the law by international court. The law is equitable, is equity too, Kevin, you know that. There's no, listen, we have played into their hands. Somebody has assisted
Into
us.
whose hands? The
Guatemalan.
ICJ?
No.
Oh.
ICJ is a static institution sitting, waiting for persons to come.
Let me ask you this question. So you reference Professor Bassiani's the most recent. No, it's not the most recent. The legal opinion being put out by the Bar Association. UWI professor has all the accolades to verify or to validate what he put forward, right? You pick up points of the opinion to talk of why perhaps we should be concerned about going to the ICJ and the path that we're on. But if you look at the comprehensive legal opinion, and if you look at the other comprehensive legal opinions, they all seem to validate the case of Belize.
They're not there because how much people we ask? We only asked Sir Eli and his group, which is the same.
Four, including Schriebel, which is
Yes.
the one who gave us the most recent
one
opinion.
recycled. It's a recycled thing. He's recycling his.
I guess the argument is that you validate something
Well,
in
all right.
Marlene
Marlene and attorney at law, activist, human rights advocate Kevin Arthurs. Let me bring this in at this point. Yeah, this is very important. Sir Eli and his group that gave Belize that fabulous legal opinion in this matter in 2001 or thereabouts. Listen, Sir Eli is saying that Belize has an exceptionally strong case when it comes to Guatemala making claim. Those are powerful words for lawyers to use. You don't have one case, you don't have one strong case, you have an exceptionally strong case. Okay? And then he goes on to say, and do not believe that Guatemala can possibly establish a valid claim to any part of the territory of Belize. Of course, the court is not always predictable, and I could be wrong. But I cannot see how we can proceed on any other basis than that the 2002 opinion that they had given is correct. Let me read that again, Marlene, for your viewers. Of course, the court is not talking about the ICJ. The ICJ court is not always predictable, and I could be wrong. Now, let me tell you what one of my heroes said, as I knew this man as a young child coming out of college and going to work in the public service. Gian Gandhi in March of 2009 comes from India and took this country as his beloved country. He stayed here and worked with change of governments. They don't like him, he's excellent, he's what's the word? He's exceptionally good public officer. Mr. Gandhi wrote advising the government of Belize, the Prime Minister of Belize, on the 12th of March 2009. No matter what the strength of Belize's case may be under international law, the possibility of some territorial adjustment by Belize cannot be ruled out. In fact, it would be surprising to the point of incredulity, incredible, unbelievable, if the ICJ adjudication were to result in a wholesale rejection of Guatemala's claim. It would be incredible if that should happen, given the nature and the composition of the International Court of Justice. It follows that the possible alteration of Belize's existing boundaries, as set out in Schedule 1 of the Constitution, consequent upon the ICJ adjudication, is a live issue and must be fully addressed before any steps are taken to ratify the special agreement.
That's a major.
And this is from?
Wow.
Gian
Gandhi, who was the former Solicitor General of Belize, extraordinary.
No, printed where?
In his legal opinion to the Prime Minister of Belize in March of 2009, he also said this, and I don't like it. It's
never been shared before.
After seeing Sir Eli's response, Mr. Gandhi wrote on the 13th of March 2009, he thought that view was overconfident of Belize's case, and he pointed to Sir Eli's admission that, quoting, there is always a risk of losing in court proceedings. That is, he's quoting from Sir Eli, remote as it might be in the present case. In Mr. Gandhi's view, quote again, this is Gandhi, it would not be enough to tell the Belizeans that Belize has an exceptionally strong case on the merits. Belizeans would want a cast iron guarantee that there would be no loss of Belizean territory in any circumstances. Sir Eli, Gandhi says, candidly admits that the court is not always predictable and that he, Sir Eli, could be wrong. Why were we not told this? This was in writing from March 2009. You know what they do?
Where do you get it?
Yeah.
I can't reveal my sources, but
it's never been published.
Well, it's published now.
But we can't verify it either.
Well, you can now verify it.
But I want to ask this much because it's interesting. It's almost Nostradamus-like in terms of the criticisms of the campaign in speaking only of the merits of the case. So it seems that at some point in time, someone, Jengande in this case, has pointed out that there is a danger, understanding the Belizean context, in speaking with absolute certainty of what could potentially happen at court.
I think
this is a very interesting document that you're revealing here. And
yes.
Was it commissioned? What is your
yes,
knowledge
it was
behind?
And I'll give you as a
it's
journalist.
a legal opinion on the legal opinion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
He's offering his view on the special agreement. Don't go ratifying that treaty without checking so and so. They go ahead and ratify the treaty.
That was 2009. That was after the signing of the special agreement. You said 2009, right?
December 2008. Only a few months afterwards.
It was ratified until 2016 in the Senate.
Right. Now, Kevin asked the question, and I can now answer you since you come back around. The treaty was taken to the Senate at the end of 2016, and the Constitution, I believe, says the Senate gives authority to ratify a treaty. Not because they gone to the Senate and they gave authority to ratify. I mean, well, the Parliament endorsed it, the Parliament supported, the Parliament actually agreed with it. No, that's not two different things. The Senate is the only body that can authorize ratification of a treaty. But the Senate can't ratify no treaty or authorize a treaty which is in wholesale violation of the Constitution itself. They are not doing that. They are just doing, you bring a treaty to me, we are not attorneys, no lawyer give no advice. They don't even have a parliamentary council, to my knowledge, somebody who is entirely for the House of Representatives and the Senate, or one each or whatever. They look at it and they do what they're being asked to do, a motion to ratify so and so and so and so. Yeah? And that's how that gone so, but that is not the Constitution authorizing this special agreement. The special agreement is from the get-go unlawful and in violation of the Constitution of Belize, and it has very, very serious consequences. Put in jeopardy people who live down in the Toledo district, their property rights, their rights to their identity to be Belizeans. It put a lot of things into jeopardy. Anticipated breach is a bad matter in the court. You don't have to wait till the matter go upside down.
But my question was, and I hear what you're saying, because we went back to the case, but it's looking at the legal opinion. So what you've presented to us is a legal opinion, you said, that was presented to Dennis
by
Gian Gandhi.
No, Mr. Gian Gandhi gave his views to the Prime Minister of the country.
On the
special agreement.
On the legal opinion prepared by...
No. Mr. Gandhi is saying, they signed a document in December of 2008. It will come up for ratification. There is this view from Sir Eli and his group who gave an opinion. He looks at that. None of us has been told this, This is a serious matter, You know what this is in any other democracy? We are so used to being lied at, chanced, deceived, and so on and so forth, that when another deception comes, it's we know all that surprise. This is a serious deception to the people of Belize. Can I add on to that this matter? If you were to take, I'm sure I brought it here. If you were to take, well, I don't want to go down that road, but I'll still mention it as I pass. Listen, the Ministry of Education, where millions of our tax dollars are spent on formal education, now play no role in this matter from 2008 till now. It's not in the curriculum. Assad Schumann puts out an extraordinarily comprehensive, factual, reference-based book on the issue. It's not his first book on the issue. It's not taught in the schools of Belize. In other words, let me tell you, you don't have to be an activist or want to. This is an act of national deception that the people of Belize are ignorant as to the facts surrounding this matter. In Guatemala, their education is basically Belize es nuestro. In Belize, we swallow what the British tell we, unfounded claim. All the legal opinions are saying there is a situation in regards to Article 7, you know. The British violated the 1859 treaty. That is what has caused Guatemala all these years to be saying, you know, I signed a treaty with you because I expected compensation.
Let me bring another aspect into the conversation, because we talk very often about the fact that there are very people who are resolved to their yes and people who are resolved to their no position. But there are also people out there trying to make up their mind, Dickie, and they listen to shows like this, they pay attention to the forums. They may not be the most vocal, but they're trying to piece together how to make what is this absolutely important decision come April 10th or whatever day. And you read something as eye-opening as what Gian Gandhi said, and you're right, it is a very formidable person who's put together this opinion, which we are only hearing about today. And they try to put it in context of all the other opinions that they've heard. Now, all the other opinions, so if you're putting a scale together, you lawyers do that, right? It's a balancing act. And you have one caution statement and 4 or 5 validation statement. How do you help people to rationalize this information that you're putting forward when all the other information is said, or that has been presented to people, is saying you stand a good chance to successfully win this case at the ICJ?
I would say that, first of all, had we conducted what we were required to conduct, a proper education, information campaign, this conversation would not be necessary because people would have had all the facts. Mm-hmm. They would have known exactly what is the issue or issues, what is Guatemala's view, what is our view, what is Guatemala liars' view. And please remind me, Marlene, to say something about Manley O. Hudson
report,
that both countries are familiar with his legal advice in this matter, because it's part of the thing. So let me answer your question that way. Were we properly informed, we would not have to be worried about this matter. We'd all go and say yes, or we'd all go and say no, making allowances for the fact that everybody have their own individual views about matter, and some people you can't satisfy them, and some other people. So that's the first point to be made. Mm-hmm. For anybody to come, for anybody to come and tell you, a big adult, you must vote yes, or come and only give you just a little bit of information to satisfy you that, oh yes man, yeah man, the treaty impregnable, we fall back on the 1859 treaty, Britain know where they made it do, Guatemala just big and chancy and so on and so on. The minute they have to just give you a little bit of information, so you have no choice but to either not vote or to vote yes, something is wrong with that perspective. Why we can't, you don't hear the British argument at all? Why we can't say to the Belizean people that in 1859 there was a treaty between Guatemala and Britain, and that Article 7 required the British to assist Guatemala, do their best efforts to try and get a cart road to the Atlantic, and the British never do their part? Nobody said that, you start there. That is the genesis of the problem. And down through the ages, Guatemala has been saying, pass you the chance, me man, you want, I keep Article 1 which say where they mark off the boundaries, but you don't want to keep Article 7 which say you never do your part. You violate a part of the treaty. That's what Professor V is saying.
So they're saying that the consequence of them not complying with Article 7 is not for dash the whole treaty.
That is their view, but Guatemala says if you violate it, yes, that's it. Guatemala, the British is saying, this is what we propagandists are telling us. This is a boundary treaty, and even if the British had violated Article 7, it no matter, the boundaries stay. But they don't take that view. For over 100 years, that is not that view. You can't, no man, you can't violate the treaty and tell me that. But that Dickie, is illegal. But just tell me, I'm just saying, tell me that is what happened, that is what is the view of one country and the other country.
No, I think to be fair, I've seen that in presentations, the acknowledgement that the cart road was not built. And I think where it progresses in terms of presentations made by those advocating for a yes vote is to say that it is essentially a boundary treaty. And that's why, as much as I think that perhaps we don't look at why the weight of legal opinions are necessary, that's why oftentimes independent persons are sought to talk about whether or not building a cart road becomes a hinging argument on whether or not a boundary
well, all right.
is
Let me
So-
get in Manley O. Hudson. In 1950, this another outstanding person, a judge, was asked by the Guatemalans to give
He
them
prepared
legal
the Guatemalan
Yes, and he
legal
gave
opinion.
them his considered legal opinion. Now, Kevin, you and I are liars, we give legal opinion. Legal opinions are legal opinions. That's an opinion. In any event, this...
What does that mean?
It means that this is not the court that is saying it.
Oh,
Yeah, that's my view.
But
This
it's
is
your
just-
way of reassuring your client when they come in.
So this will make
That is all well and fine, but then you can be wrong, as Gandhi point out with them. You did tell me you could be wrong. Why don't you tell me that, Mr. Government? Why you try hiding from me? But listen to this part here. Manley Hudson made the point that Guatemala's claim against Belize is a very weak case. That is reassuring to whoever it is, to all of us. But he not end there, you know. He says, should Guatemala take the British to the ICJ? It's a very, very strong chance of them being given compensation for what had transpired by Britain's failure to live up to Article 7. How we not hear that, Kevin? No, aren't we entitled to hear that? No, I am saying it to say this. This is not a legal opinion, it's just an opinion. I'm saying it to say this.
As a lawyer.
Listen, you know why I'm saying this? The British are facing a situation in which if the Guatemalans take them to court, they may have to pay billions of
Reparations, he calls it reparations in the
word.
Hudson
Yeah,
report.
but I
Yes.
don't want, you know, if you know me, I try to keep away from these words.
We
Why
talk
not?
reparations and we talk about
We got a high school, so we know
Emancipation
reparation, but
Day
the
and whatnot.
reparation is another word for compensation. If you
Yes.
pay money, pay
Yes.
money.
Yes.
The British had sought to
But
placate Guatemala by giving them Belize's land, offering to give land. That is how they don't want to pay money, they made the offer land. They were to pay money, you know. Let me throw this in before.
There was an attempt to compensate historically.
Yeah, but the British back out of it, which is what
There
made
was a
Guatemala
time frame
furious.
that was given.
That is the British
that
version.
Well, it is the
No, that is the
agreed.
British
It is
version.
the history that's been told to us by history, but
Guatemala is in war. Do you have any Congress when you're at war? You're fighting to survive.
I'm a Belizean.
It's
I
a
don't know
legal
why.
argument, yes, but you know, we got in high school, so we know certain things. But listen, man,
But
you know what I'm leading to? Let me get this point in. I want to get this point in. This is important for me. Everybody seems to be saying that there is a problem over Article 7 that was caused by the British. The British take the position, I have the actual wording of what they said, you know, it's an interesting thing. The British are saying, why, I tried to do work on me doing, and I couldn't go and through and pay you and whatnot. This situation is this, in my humble view, Marlene. The British have succeeded in getting Belize to agree to go to court with the Guatemalans. On this business of Article 32 or 38, one where people is saying that, you see, we're going on legal. When you look on the words, you will see it's not what they're saying. But we get pushed out there first, because as Oriano and Hudson and they are saying, the British would be liable to pay compensation for these people for what had happened. We end up now going to court, we rush go to court using the British argument. You know, we know they use for we heavy argument that know that here what happened. Britain can't give no land now to Guatemala because the land belongs to us, and Guatemala can't ask me for no land because of a quarrel between them and Britain. Not going to ask me to give up my land. Not want me go to court to put up the possibility that you will get from Moho to Sahastoon, or you will end up to get the whole Sahastoon River plus seas, because me and you not sign no treaty, I no broke no treaty with you. You go after the man who broke the treaty with you. The British got we to go first because there's a possibility that Guatemala will get something, and if Guatemala gets something, they can't turn around as they are saying and then take. They said they're going after the British next, you know. But if they get sea or land or river, a combination of those things, in my opinion, not a legal opinion, you can't turn around and then still carry Britain to court because you have been compensated. You can't get compensated twice for the same thing. So the British push me to come out there because there is a strong possibility. Thank you, Gandhi.
Let me be
But Dickie, that
provocative.
doesn't
be
take away
provocative.
that doesn't take away the claim over Belize.
Yes,
and,
man, this
And
what-
there is the fact that we did gain our independence, and by nature of accepting the responsibility of this territory, it did come along with that claim from Guatemala.
We don't accept that view there. But the British in 1982 circulated a note to all the members of the United Nations saying they're no longer responsible for any other thing that happened and so on, so on, so on, so on. That's the way they say. But if we had time and I tell you what happened with the Maritime Areas Act, you would take a different view. The British are very, very much involved in this matter. And I really appreciate that Johnny Briceño personally had publicly said yes and decided to go along with the majority of the people in this party and say no. It takes us a certain amount of leadership strength to be able to say, I have seen some other matters, okay? So we don't have the time. One funny thing, we don't have the time for
we don't have that much time, actually.
I wanted to ask this. It's saying that, I'm understanding what you're saying to be that, listen, the wrong people are being taken to court and we are putting ourselves at risk when we are not the party, we're not the people who are supposed to sue. But isn't that more reason why we should go to court? Because shouldn't the court then see that, listen, they're not me that the problem is the British, and the court then, if we assume that the court will act competently, will then say, Belize, you're off the hook now officially. Now, Guatemala, go at the British, so that we are completely off the hook and that...
Which raises this point, because of time, let me interrupt you, which raises this point, Marlene. Or you say that you're tired of silk, the thing they slip off. You wear expensive. You wear expensive tie, Kevin. Make money. Yeah.
You guys are lawyers.
Which listen. It's a pity we don't have, part 1 and part 2.
Okay.
That is an excellent point, but let me make this point. On the 25th day of February of 2019, 2019, it's a few weeks ago, the ICJ handed down a decision in which the British and Chagos Islands went to the ICJ over what Britain had done in the Chagos Islands. And, for argument's sake, the British put forward 34 ironclad arguments. 33 of those arguments get backed down. Mr. Ironclad, waterproof, airtight, get backed down. The ICJ said Britain is, this is their words, Britain is to leave the Chagos Islands as rapidly as possible. One judge out of all the judges at the ICJ agreed with the British argument. Guess what? That is a judge from the United States of America. And guess what? The United States of America has a massive military base on the Chagos Islands called Diego Garcia. Now, 2 things come out of that. Do you see that judges, they take positions of their countries? Is that a possibility? That the only judge, we not say where they go on, is from a country that is deeply involved in the matter. But the second thing, the point I'm raising to Kevin, who has asked an important question, is when the British went to the ICJ, guess what? They went for an advisory opinion. They didn't go for final and binding. They discouraged George Price in asking for an advisory opinion on this matter. And they have we the fools saying, yes, we could go final and binding because the court might say this and the court might. Why are we going to do that when we could have asked and still can ask for an advisory opinion? Maybe we can't know because we're going to sign treaty with our next country. But it is important for us as a people to know that we could have gone for an advisory opinion, and what Kevin is saying is fine. The court would have said, if you bring this to me, this is the decision that I will make.
And I can recall vividly the conversation with
Ambassador
David Gibson talking about going to an advisory opinion.
Yes, he said so.
And it's been asked and answered as well, whether you accept the request or not. But I mean, the response, we're so out of time, but there's just one more question I want to ask you, Dickie. Just one more. And if we could have a concise answer, as unfair as that is,
there is no concern.
We know it clearly that you are a proponent of the no position, no in this referendum in going to the ICJ. Are you 100% opposed to settling this dispute at the International Court of Justice?
No.
So in the future,
that's concise enough. That's concise enough.
In the future, you may be amenable to agreeing for Belize and Guatemala to settle this issue at the International Court of
Two
Justice.
things I want to quickly say concisely if I can, which I can't. One is,
Just try.
and no, I'll try.
Yeah.
One is that I'm no advocate for no, and so, I end up in this position because it is shocking to me. All the years I'm reading, one time you and I were looking at it, back was about 18 books here on your studio, not to show off and get gal, but just to show the amount of documentation that is involved. There's a lot of reading. So here I am, just as a citizen of my country, I read all this thing and I hear all this bull going on the media, deceiving our people. And nobody to give me no money when I travel all the way to PG if say like, why we need to get more information. So that is one point, yeah? I'm not out there no to this and no to that. To answer what Kevin is leading at, there might come a time we need to go to the court, but for goodness sake, I won't call the Lord's name in vain like a person did at their press conference. For goodness sake, man. Give the people of Belize all the information that is available so they can make an informed decision.
So your no is based on the education campaign?
No, it's based on where it's being told that, listen, my boy, we got ironclad, we don't want lose, this. Can I make I hurry push this right in here? Page 266 of Asad Schuman's extraordinarily informative book on the 14th of December 1984, government change in Belize for the first time. December 1984. On January the 28th, our new Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dean O'Barrow, is in England telling them that he and his government are prepared to do adjustment to the territorial seas. And they are prepared to make Guatemala get keys. They will lease the keys so they can Guatemala want to get keys. He just get in, they're a month and a half and don't make that decision, Okay, so let me answer your question. Yes, there may come a time and can come a time we need to go to court. Let us go to court like a mature and well-educated set of people. Now the matter has turned into party politics. Even lamppost, they say yes. So now have you seen a lamppost saying yes?
Moving.
Right. And let me also add this because I want to put this in. It is so unfair to the people of Belize, so unfair, so low and deceptive to haul out Mr. Golson out of a grave and got on the talking in Spanish on the roadside. They tell people that, yes, the only way to go to ICJ. Right. And even worse, Judge Price, who has said, you, the British, caused this problem, you must pay for it. To try and take people believe like, why, well, if Judge me there with it, this is unfair and I know time has gone.
It's out, yeah. Once you see the producer steps in, it means it's time to end it off. But thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and take a break. It's another very interesting conversation. We're talking about some of the research coming out of the Belize National Research Conference taking place in the next few days. Stay tuned.